Okay, so this week/weekend watch has become a thing. Should I turn this into episodes? I think I should turn this into an episodic series. Then, this is everything I watched this weekend, episode 3. So, last week's viewing was tough, in a bittersweet way, of course, due to Bo Burnham's comedy special or film. You know, I like to call it a film because it feels more like a film than a comedy special. Don't you think? You should definitely watch it if you haven't already, and you should check out my thoughts on it after that or before that. Completely your choice. This weekend was full to the brim with talk about The Family Man season 2. Well, talk बोलने से गलत होगा. It was more of an ignorant round of applause. Yes, there are many things to appreciate in it, but the negative stuff outweighs the positive aspects by a mile. You can check out my detailed thoughts on it up there. And while people were busy with only that, my hyperactive khopdi was switching between movies and shows in various languages and from different genres. So, please allow me to share my thoughts on them with you so that you can decide what you want to watch. But before doing that, I gotta remind you to sit through the credits of the movies or shows you're going to watch. Please, it's not that big of a deal. Stars और directors और writers ही सिर्फ important नहीं होता है, और भी लोग होते हैं who make these seemingly impossible pieces of art and entertainment happen. तो उनके लिए please sit through the credits. If you know any of them, send them a text that you saw the name in the credits. उनको अच्छा लगेगा यार. और मेरे को क्या अच्छा लगेगा वो तो आपको पता ही है. एक लाइक, एक सब्सक्राइब, एक शेयर और एक कमेंट अबाउट द फेवरेट शो और मूवी फ्रॉम दिस लिस्ट, या फिर योर थॉट्स एंड ओपिनियंस अबाउट द मूवीज एंड शोज इन दिस लिस्ट, या फिर एनीथिंग दैट यू वांट मी टू वॉच. राइट, नाउ लेट्स स्टार्ट विद द लिस्ट. Arcarium streaming on Amazon Prime Video. Should I say anything about this movie? I don't think I should say anything about this movie. Okay, I'll say what happens till the 1 hour mark and vaguely talk about what happens after that. It takes place during the pandemic. To be specific, it takes place a few days before the first lockdown, 2020 wala. It is centered around a couple, Shirley and Roy, who are planning to visit Shirley's dad and a daughter from her first marriage. There's a subplot about Roy's financial problem which seems kind of inconsequential, but holy shit does it come into play in a significant way later. So the first hour of this movie is like the lockdown you wished you had. Desi cottage co stuff. I thought I won't use that word in a sentence like ever, but here we are. Everything is very light and fluffy. Everyone is getting along with everyone so well. There's the occasional tension about how they are going to reach Sophie, Shirley's daughter, since the borders have been closed, or Roy's financial problems. And while the issue with reaching Sophie is kind of resolved, Roy's financial problems reach a peak, and that's when the proverbial rug is pulled from right underneath your feet. And then it turns into your worst lockdown nightmare. I just want to talk to the person who has registered Arcarium as a mystery comedy. Mystery, yes. Comedy? किधर से कॉमेडी दिख रहा है? What is so funny about anything in this movie? Pray explain. If you're even a little close to being as sensitive and anxious as I am, we'll probably need to pause the film and pick up your jaw from the floor after the twist. You can say a darkly comedic aspect of the film is that one out of the 3 characters know nothing about what the other 2 are going through, right? I don't know, but yeah, that's all I'm going to say about the plot itself. Apart from that, I think that Arcarium is an interesting commentary on theism. I have always wondered how religious people do some of the shittiest things in the world and then just go to sleep. And the answer is as easy as that. They leave it up to God. They see every happy coincidence that's essentially a result of their privilege and social status as a sign from God. And they just go about their day. While the rest of us who are sane are left to marinate in our guilt and self-awareness. Which one is the right way to go? Of course it's the later, because accountability is more important than anything else in the world. That said, the way it presents the counter argument to that is undeniably interesting and worth discussing for hours. क्योंकि मोरालिटी है ही ऐसा चीज़, वक्त और हालात के साथ चेंज होते रहते हैं. Nayar 2 streaming on Netflix. The story of Nayar 2 revolves around Praveen, Mani and Sunitha, 3 police officers from a small police station in Kerala who find themselves in a mess during election season after a person from the Dalit community is killed in an accident with their vehicle. Just like Operation Java, I was cautiously optimistic about this movie because I know how much Indians just love to glorify cops. Actually, nowadays it's not even glorification. Now it's to generate empathy towards the profession by showing them doing mundane stuff and how they're forced to do things that they don't want to do, but they have to because the bad politicians are making them do it. I mean, say what you want to say and believe what you want to believe, but nothing in this world will convince me that the profession isn't full of a-holes who are either in it to exact some kind of revenge fantasy or are brainwashed to such an extent that they think that the oppression of the common folk is justice. Thankfully, Nair 2 furthers that notion, albeit in a little grey fashion, because it shows that the group of Dalit activists accusing the police of oppression are rowdy and abusive. Can I blame them though? No. The police are supposed to pacify and ensure that justice prevails in the truest sense, instead of, whatever Praveen, Mani, and Sunita do. And kudos to the film for showing how they pay for it. Double kudos for showing how the people trying to nab the trio pay for their chaplusi towards the government. I want to say triple kudos for Mani's spine-chilling end, but I am not as cold as those in the police are. So I will stop there with the kudoses. It's nowhere close to being an easy watch. It is a slow burn. It has excellent performances and some of the best cinematography, sound design and score that I have seen and heard in an Indian film recently. But to be honest, it was so engrossing that I forgot to look into the details. Throughout the film, I was just constantly saying, if this doesn't feel like a wake-up call for the police and those who glorify them, nothing will. So yeah, please wake up. Politicians किसी के सगे नहीं होते. The police should serve the people who are paying them, that is the common folk, and put corrupt politicians in jail, not the other way around. Ragnarok Season 2 streaming on Netflix. We have 2 shows on Norse mythology in this list. Coincidence? Maybe. Maybe not. Who knows? I'm kidding, it's not. Or maybe it is. I'm trying to be as devious as Loki, man. Give me a break. If you haven't watched the first season of Ragnarok, here's a summary. The show is set in a small Nordic town which is being polluted by the most influential family there, the Utuls, who are actually giants. Yes, like from the Norse mythology. Now, a few gods exist there, but they aren't as powerful. The tables are kinda turned when Magne enters the picture along with his family. Why? Because he is the vessel for Thor and he has the power to destroy the Utuls and save the town from dying a slow death. While the first season was very black and white in terms of representing who is good and who is bad, Season 2 starts to make things a little grey, especially with Fjord and Loritz's allegiances. If you're somewhat well versed about Norse mythology, you will know what Loritz actually is. Yes, it's Loki. But this is not the Tom Hiddleston wala Loki, although Jonas Strand Gravely can pass for a young Hiddleston. This character is, for the lack of a better word, complicated. And the showrunners aren't afraid of diving into that complexity, exploring the character's sexuality, and still keeping things grounded. That said, I think that season 2 of Ragnarok was kind of all over the place and maybe even a little cliched, especially with Magne. You know how the superhero loses their powers in their second outing. Yeah, that's basically what happens here. And his arc becomes divided between recruiting the new gods and understanding whether he wants to be a god himself. I'm not saying that that's not compelling, at least on paper, but I don't know, the execution didn't sit well with me. Another reason for that might be because of the exposure to the cosmic side of the show, because of which the grounded stuff felt a little too basic, you know what I mean? Still, I highly recommend this show. We need more environment-friendly reimaginations of age-old characters to hammer home the message that we need to save this world because it's the only one that we have. The Great Indian Kitchen, streaming on Amazon Prime Video. What can I possibly add to the discourse around this film that isn't already out there? Other than just urge you to watch this movie. It's one of the best movies out there right now. I think you should watch The Great Indian Kitchen with your family. If you don't want to expose your children to some of the suggestive sex scenes in the film, you may exclude them from the viewing experience. But if you all are adults, sit down and watch it. Because you will get to see how you and your family emulate most or all of the patriarchal practices shown in the film. And I'm not just talking about men. वो तो है ही. I'm also talking about women who have been brainwashed into thinking that patriarchy is awesome. The whole subplot around menstruation, which then flows into the Sabrimala controversy, actually reminded me about the times the women in my life weren't allowed to attend religious ceremonies because they were menstruating. Since I am an atheist, I used to be like, if a religion doesn't allow you to practice it because of a very natural thing your body does, there's definitely something wrong with the religion, not you. And I still stand by it. However, watching the wife get absolutely tortured by another female member of the family had me fuming. Religious ceremony chodo, apparently when women are having their periods, they aren't allowed to come in front of anyone or touch anything that cannot be washed. What? Seriously, what? And this movie is set in 2021, which means this is happening in 2021. Why? Give me one logical reason. Half logical bhi chalega. Have you seen those videos of men reacting like maniacs to artificial period cramps? Yeah. And you are subjecting women suffering from that kind of pain, that too silently, to more pain. Why? Why does this country hate women so much while making goddesses in their image? बस वही एस्पेक्ट्स चाहिए विच आर कन्वीनियंट फॉर योर वेल बीइंग, बाकी सब साइड में रख देने का नहीं चलेगा. Seriously though, what's the solution? The movie concludes in a pretty optimistic way while also highlighting how nothing changes if you see it from a macro perspective. And in real life, many won't even get that bittersweet conclusion. So, what can you do? From my myopic perspective, say no to marriage. Just say no. I don't think it's worth it. Create your own legacy, no matter how large scale or small scale it is, but go for it. Don't settle. I know I'm sounding like an infomercial, but it's true. Men don't deserve women. Men as a gender need to pay for the sins of their past as long as the scales aren't tipped towards women for the next few generations. And then, maybe then, we can talk about giving men a chance. Yes, this is coming from a man, and yes, I will say this to my father's face as well. Can you? Sweet Tooth, streaming on Netflix. Lost kid, gruff adult, apocalyptic scenario. It always works, doesn't it? Well, since I've seen the exact story play out so many times, I was almost expecting it to not work this time. In fact, after flipping through some of the panels of the graphic novel the show is based on, I was actually a little bummed out that the showrunners went the live action route instead of animation. But I will be lying to your faces if I said that I didn't enjoy it. And you will be lying to my face if you said that you didn't fall in love with Gus almost instantly. Jeb, played excellently by Nonso Enozi, at one point says that Gus has hope gushing out of every pore of his body. I will add cuteness to the equation as well. That said, the show doesn't just depend on the story of Gus and Jeb. It has a few other subplots about a doctor trying to find a cure for the pandemic while living in a pretty upper-classish society where people burn the infected to death. A rebel leader who wants to save these animal-human hybrids who are a result of the pandemic while ironically keeping a chained tiger for executions. A bearded fascist who wants the cure and kill these hybrids because he thinks they are the cause of the pandemic. Parallels to other bearded fascists are purely coincidental. And a therapist who is fostering the hybrids to protect them. In addition to the performances, the cinematography and production design deserve a huge round of applause because it has to portray an apocalyptic scenario where there's more greenery than there was when things were normal. Something like Love and Monsters. Watch that movie if you haven't already. The greenery is almost like a tragic joke. Like it looks beautiful, natural and organic, but it's a reminder that it exists because humans don't. And while we are going through a pandemic ourselves, I know that we have said multiple times that maybe we are the plague and that the world will be better off without us. Sweet Tooth shows us if we will be able to live in this better alternative scenario. This contrast is also present in the show's tone. You have these simple, warm relationships like the one between Gus, Bear and Jeb, or the brief one between Papa and Birdie. And then literal kids are being killed and harvested in order to find a cure for the pandemic. But the shifts between these tones are never jarring. Or maybe we have become a little used to weird tonal shifts with the pandemic we are facing. Because here we are watching fun movies and shows while getting news of people dying. Did that get a little too meta? Dom, streaming on Amazon Prime Video. I have to give it to Amazon Prime Video for marketing the hell out of this show, which came out on the same day season 2 of The Family Man was released. But I'm not seeing any discussion around it. Well, don't worry. I'm here to change that by talking about it. Dom tells the story of the titular character who's the son of an ex-cop who in his youth was tasked with taking down the supply of coke to Rio de Janeiro. The narrative primarily switches between the 70s and the mid 2000s to show the parallels between Dom and his father Victor's life. बीच में it goes to the late 90s to show Dom's young age to find out exactly where things went wrong and turned him into a drug addict. Spoiler alert, the show never really arrives at that answer because there isn't a concrete answer to why somebody becomes a drug addict. Is it the status of the country that has been degraded by its politicians? Is it family? Is it friends? Or is it a genetic neurological condition? Nobody knows. The one thing that everyone knows though is that the drug addiction is there as clear as the sun shining on the Copacabana beach. It's what you do with it that matters. Do you want to fight it? Do you want to succumb to it? Yes, that's what matters. Dom has been marketed as this show about a father and a son trying to find some kind of normalcy in these abnormal circumstances. They are on the poster as well. But I found the exploration of Dom and Lico's friendship to be a little more interesting. Because as a unit and maybe not individually, my friends and colleagues have probably been more influential in my life than my parents. I always say that. They see things through my perspective more easily than my parents do. It's the age gap and whatnot. So to see that notion being presented in such a visceral way really hit me. The actors seriously deserve a round of applause for their performance, especially the two actors who play Dom. नाम प्रोनाउंस करने मत बोलो, नहीं होगा मेरे से, इसलिए बोलता हूँ, sit through the credits. The show is kind of slow paced till the 4th episode, but 5th episode में एक montage है which focuses on Dom's rehabs. It floored me and I'm sure it's going to floor you too. So instead of watching The Family Man or after watching The Family Man, please watch Dom. Indori Ishq streaming on MX Player. Let's just observe a moment of silence for my brain cells that perished while watching this show. I have to give it to the people running MX Player who greenlight stuff like this. They're keeping the indie side of the entertainment industry alive. बाकी तो सिर्फ बोलते हैं, MX Player करके दिखाते हैं, हाँ भाई हाँ. If I came up with scripts such as Indori Ishq, I would have rejected myself. But MX Player says no, you do you boo. The only positive aspect about this show is the acting, which after a point does get repetitive, but I'll give it to the actors for trying their level best to make everything and anything happening in the plot somehow believable. क्या हो रहा है प्लॉट में? लव, फिर PG-13 सेक्स, फिर ब्रेकअप, फिर बहुत सारा सुट्टा स्मोकिंग एंड दारू गटकोइंग, फिर फेक लव, फिर सम मोर PG-13 सेक्स, फिर ब्रेकअप, फिर पैचअप, फिर से ब्रेकअप और फिर खत्म. I seriously don't know who this show is for. Sometimes it is Kabir Singh light, sometimes it is Kal Ho Na Ho light with a watered down version of the 6 Din Ladke in formula. Sometimes it is Alt Balaji light with the kissing and sex. एक लाइन का डायलॉग नहीं है टू एस्टैब्लिश द केमिस्ट्री, पता है? एक लाइन नहीं है. एक लाइन उठा के दिखा दो which even hints at the fact that either of these characters have any kind of romantic chemistry. मैं मान जाऊंगा. Either kissing, नहीं तो गाली, और नहीं तो अजीब अजीब से गाने, बस. और भक्त अंकल लोग यही सब देख के बोलेंगे कि इंडियन एंटरटेनमेंट बच्चों का दिमाग कैसे भ्रष्ट कर रहा है. तो will I recommend watching इंदौरी इश्क? हाँ, if you are an aspiring screenwriter, please देखो ये, for 2 reasons. पहले, to avoid doing everything that this show does. और दूसरा, to believe in the notion that एक ना एक दिन तुम्हारा स्क्रिप्ट भी ग्रीन लाइट होगा. अगर इंदौरी इश्क ग्रीन लाइट हो सकता है, तुम्हारा भी होगा. बिलीव. Loki episode 1 streaming on Disney Plus Hotstar. It's good to have Tom Hiddleston back as Loki. I don't know what it is about him. He never had a lot of screen time throughout the MCU and has always been a loser and a sore one at that. But Tom has always managed to inject a mixture of fun and melancholy to this character that kind of sticks to you like gum to hair. I'm sorry, I'm not as good as Loki at metaphors. But that's not the point. The point is that it's good to have him back. Coming to the episode itself, I think visually this is the best of the MCU shows. Everything from the production design to the set design, camera work, visual effects are just spectacular. In the first episode itself, the show jumps between a variety of time periods and it's very consistent. The score is pulpy, it switches between the synth-based music set by Ragnarok and the medieval tunes that are usually associated with the Norse gods. All in all, top marks for the look and feel of the show. Now, if you are a fan of Friends or any other sitcom that came out during the 80s and the 90s and even the late 2000s, you'll notice a similarity between them and this episode. It's basically what's called a clip show, which, according to Wikipedia, is an episode of a television series that primarily consists of excerpts from previous episodes. The plot necessarily doesn't really move, and the characters just go into flashbacks. In Loki's case, it makes sense because this version or variant needs purpose, because he hasn't lived the life that the Loki we know has. But as a viewer who knows the life Loki has lived, it gets a little tedious. Well, at least until the moment he does find his purpose. I think at this point it's clear that Marvel Phase 4 is all about sending their heroes or anti-heroes into some form of existential crisis so that they can rediscover themselves. And I'm totally here for it. Because listening to Loki speak his truth and how everything he does is an illusion to hide the fact that he's weak is fascinating. This is rock bottom for him, and he can only go up from here. Please don't ask me if I notice any Easter eggs and references in the animated sequence or in the glass windows of that church or the cliffs of the weapon in the field. I was too busy vibing, and I think you should too. Alrighty, that's the list. What have you watched out of all these movies and shows? Let me know in the comments. If you agree with my opinions, like the bado. If you kind of agree with my opinions, like the bado. If you disagree, तब भी like the bado और फिर बताओ why you disagree with me. Please do share the video, subscribe to the channel, and as always, please stay healthy and stay safe.